Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Bullets and Bourbon. I'm joined here by my co-host Frank Gow, and we have returning guest Stephen Corson, more or less now the operations chief for the Marine Corps shooting team, I guess you can say. Has done some amazing work and made some extremely good changes to the format of the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, has taken his new role on the team extremely seriously and has been diligent about all the moves and changes that he's been made, which have recently been approved. And we're going to be talking about that on this episode. But one of the things I wanted to talk about first is recently was reached out by organization Generation GWAT. For those of you who don't understand the term GWAT, it was the Global War on Terrorism. If you are military, obviously you're going to know what that stands for. But Generation GWAT is an organization that tries to get members of the military into, the shooting sports, into fitness activities, and just trying to promote good health and discipline on veterans and active duty military alike. And so on July 13th, they're going to be holding a match at the Zoo City Range down in Franklinville, North Carolina, called Generation GWAT 3-gun match. And it's more of an introduction match. So if you're never shot the sport, don't have the guns, don't have the ammo, stuff like that, it's going to be provided. This isn't necessarily meant for somebody who is seasoned into the shooting sports. But if you're a military member, you want to try your hand in the shooting competitions and the shooting world, they're going to have guys out there who are relatively seasoned competitors. I'm going to be out there helping with, along with some other friends. And it's more of, this is how you shoot competition. So if you're interested, please get a hold of me. I'll put you in direct contact with the match director. You can get in touch with me at matt@bulletsandbourbon.com or matt@bulletsandbourbonpodcast.com. Hit us up on Instagram if you're interested in this. We'll put you in contact with them and get you into the match if you're interested. But other than that, before we get started into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, I also wanted to talk to Stephen real quick about inter-service rifle championships. So for so many years, since 1963 or something like that, since the competition was at its inception was held, it's always been a bullseye rifle type competition. The Marine Corps is kind of leading the charge right now with changing formats and shooting competitions, from the older style bullseye into the newer style practical shooting. You can't even really call it newer style because I mean USPSA's been around since the 1970s.
Yeah, it's been around for a minute.
But I mean, the Marine Corps as a whole, we've really started making a lot of changes in the formats we've been doing in our shooting competitions, from the competitions themselves to the structure of the team itself. But Stephen, if you could kind of go over some of the changes that are going to be occurring with the Inter-Service Rifle Championships.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, Matt and Frank. But going into the Inter-Service Rifle Competition or Championship, yeah, so that's occurring later this month in June. And like you were saying, Matt, we've shifted away from strictly high power, the old bullseye method of competition, and we're really leading the charge on trying to change the competition to be more lethality based. So this year we're incorporating a PRS match. So we're going to have somewhere around 10 stages, all over 2 or 1 day, all based on long range engagements. And then we're going to have a second match is going to be all PCSL, one gun, which with a rifle. So following those rule sets, but we're trying to get more action style shooting into the matches, be more in line with the CBA, which we can talk about later. But we're still having a high power match. That's going to be the last portion of the Inter-Service Rifle Championship, but really trying to get in line more with what the Marine Corps needs in terms of lethality, get more Marines out competing.
No, that's awesome. No, we appreciate the efforts that you guys have been making. It seems like since I retired, like there's a lot of good changes that have like started to really occur, which is all you really want to see. Like the last thing, we talk about the boomers and the old team members, like from yesteryear, that always just jump on the social media pages and bash everything that the current team is doing. And like everything that we're trying to do is like the complete opposite of that, because it's exciting to really just see the changes that the team is making and the level of performance that the team is operating at. It's at an all-time high. So you guys are freaking killing it out there.
Yeah, we're putting in a lot of hard work. I know guys like hours, countless hours, either on the range or in the office, putting in tons of work, whether that's dry fire, live fire. Loads of dudes are leveling up classifications. I mean, in my opinion, like amazing guys, yourself included, on the team beforehand, but we've just been really set up for success and are really excelling right now, which is something exciting to see.
Now, I wouldn't call myself anything amazing, but I appreciate the compliment. But no, like you guys have really just been killing it out there, both on and off the range, and it's exciting to see the support that you guys are getting from everybody to implement these changes. That I'm not going to say we didn't have that same level of support, but Colonel Jones has done a really good job in like saying, I want this to happen. How do we make it happen? Let's not just half-ass it. Let's do it right. Let's get the planning done right, and let's get it out there.
100%. I think having the right leaders in place who are making the right decisions. I mean, like you said, Colonel Jones has been phenomenal with the other company grade and field grade officers above us as well. I mean, all the changes that we've been wanting to make for a long time, we were able to make, and the future is exciting.
For those of you that are interested in inter-service rifle, it's pinned on the Marine Corps shooting team's Instagram page if you want those details. Also, if you're interested in being a range officer, right, someone who is able to hold the timer and basically run stages, we are looking for some local volunteers. We already have a few, specifically for the gas gun and the PCSL portions. But, it's great that all these changes are happening, but we want to get into the actual structure and the details of how things are really changing. So the MCMC format really shifted during Matt's time with the team. Really moved away from bullseye shooting and embracing action, and that kind of changed the the capacity, the way that instruction happened. So after a few years with that format, what are the issues that you perceive with that old MCMC format? And we can talk about the capacity, the quality of instruction, time efficiency, locations, and whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, so just jumping right into it. So the old MCMC format was based all around trying to preach and instill like basic fundamentals of marksmanship over to whoever we were training at the MCMC location. So whether that's the Marines, other service members, or civilians. So with pistol, we're going over those basic fundamentals, grip, sights, triggers, all that, rifle, mount, gas gun, how to load and deload the barricades and whatnot. So since the beginning, we started doing action shooting. We've been trying to find our way. I've been trying to refer to like different generations of action shooting for the shooting team, because we are still pretty new. We're only on year 3 or 4 of actually doing action shooting. Like you said, before it was all high power and bullseye pistol. So we're kind of like paving the way for ourselves, learning what we can from the outside world, which is why the civilian marksmanship competitions are so important for us. We gain everything from them and then bring it across. But really, yeah, those past MCMC formats, all about the basics, been fine tuning those, figuring out how to actually transfer that knowledge the most efficient way possible to the competitors. And essentially, we've just almost outgrown that. So that's where changes have started coming in.
Okay. And so what has been, I guess, your vision for the new MCMC format?
Yeah, so I guess I'll touch on the old a little bit. So the old format we're looking at, 2 weeks long. So it takes a lot of time and effort from Marines out in the fleet, which we're lucky. We get to shoot a lot. We get to teach a lot. We get to travel a lot. But the Marines in the fleet aren't that lucky. They have to do workups. They got to do pre-deployment checks. They got to do all their PECLs and whatnot. So they don't have a lot of time to get out. So taking 2 weeks out, their commander is giving them 2 weeks away. That's a huge ask, one which we acknowledge and we've always tried to accommodate. So before it was a long time, 2 weeks, we had all these rifle quals, pistol quals in there. We had 3 to 4 days of individual training. We've slowly progressed where everything was mixed training and then single day training. And now we're on to more of a mix as well, which we'll get into in a second. But before, just a lot of time was taken up. Then we slowly started transitioning, trying to get that down to a week, which was cutting out a little bit of training, which was the annual rifle qualifications and the CVPs or the pistol program qualifications. We cut those out, saving some time, and we've been slowly trying to trim fat in a way, a talk of sense, I guess. I can't think of the word right now, but trim the fat and make it more streamlined. So we're delivering all the instruction, giving a great competition, getting the Marines back to their unit. A great thing about doing this for 3 to 4 years now is that the average competitor that's coming to these MCMCs now, or have been doing this for 3 to 4 years, because it's really catching on. Marines love to compete. They love action shooting. That people love to run and gun. It's not standing in one spot, shooting 20 rounds, 25 yards away. I'm running, making stage plans. Everything that I can simulate in a combat scenario, I can do on an action stage. So with that comes more proficiency from our competitors, and it gets to the point where people are starting to become stalemate. And we don't want that to happen. We want to keep progressing. We want to get more into that intermediate level of experience from our shooters, which right now, based on our past MCMCs, we were constantly teaching them basics. So it doesn't matter if you're a grandmaster or high master or whatever, we were still teaching you the basics. We're catering to the very bottom. So now we're more focused on delivering intermediate skills. We're hoping in this new format, which we can discuss here in a second, that the basic fundamentals are more subconsciously ingrained into the competitors now. And now we're going to start forcing them to make conscious decisions that are not shooting related on the range, to where they have to fully know the basics, make decisions, and then execute the stage.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. And I would say you and I entered the MCMC scene around the same time when it was starting to convert to action. And I would agree. It sounds like the team is taking a pulse across the fleet. The general, I guess, competence level of action shooting has risen. The MCMCs are getting very competitive. And it makes sense. It makes sense to focus on, it makes sense to evolve along with the fleet. Because otherwise, you got a bunch of people trying to, trying to progress their skiing level, but all you're giving them is a bunny slope.
Exactly.
So it sounds like a major part of this new format is a condensed timeline. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So unfortunately, we can't have all the time in the world. So we have to condense it. We have to brainstorm, figuring out how do we still deliver knowledge and information to the competitors, to the Marines, and then still put on a good match. Because at the end of the day, Marines want to learn, yes, but they also want to compete. And we believe that competitive spirit is what's going to drive Marines to seek out more knowledge on their own. I know I can speak for myself, and I'm pretty sure you can as well. The MCMC was just an eye opener. So we learned a little bit, but for myself, a lot of it went over my head. But what it did instill was a drive to want to go out and compete on my own, start learning from those around me, which ultimately has put me where I am today.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, I think our introduction was much the same. We medaled at our regional MCMCs, and then we all went to championships and we got crushed. So just seeing the skill curve for what it is. Okay, so part of this new MCMC overhaul involves some level of distance learning, and it seems like you guys are integrating that with the intent of, there might be some newer shooters who do have solid fundamentals, but like you said, you don't really want to focus too much on the basics. So how are you using structure, like IT systems that the Marine Corps has already invested in, to kind of augment the instruction that you guys are providing during the MCMCs?
Yeah, this is a great question. So when I first got to the team, I was I was like a year removed from IOLC, so Infantry Unit Leaders course over on the East Coast, and they were doing like a first of its kind great thing in my opinion. It might have not been first of its kind, but it's the first time I saw it. And the course was completely online in Moodle. So all the read aheads, all the in classroom work, everything was on Moodle. Modules opened up one by one. You always had access to all the information in front of you. It was the easiest thing. I wasn't walking around with a bunch of paper books, letting them get ripped, stained, what have you, worried about water. Bring my laptop to work, or the classroom that is, do all my work there. I'm submitting everything electronically. It's basically online college, but in person, that type of format for anybody who's done college online. So when I got to the team, I was like, we can 100% implement this, but there wasn't really any way to effectively do it. I started this passion project for say back in 2023, at the beginning of 23, but Moodle wasn't what it is today. So it still took a lot of work and took me a lot of researching, talking to Education Command, trying to figure out how to put all the pieces together. And then this year, with the introduction of the newest model of Moodle, has become very easy to actually input data. Now we can do everything online. So our past MCMC, all those basics are now going to be delivered virtually. So in going into the actual MCMC, the Moodle class itself will be a required item for every Marine, no matter how experienced you are, to complete it, because we are delivering a more intermediate level POI now. We're not catering to the basics, and that's going to ruffle some feathers, but ultimately, like, we have to move ahead with the main target population description. So we got to cater to that 80% Marine. And a vast majority of Marines are progressing really quickly in the fleet. A lot of that's thanks into the Marine Corps just incorporating more advanced marksmanship. So you got the Infantry Marksmanship Training Program, or IMTP, which used to be the Advanced Marksmanship Training Program, focusing more on lethality. So the previous CBA that came out saying that Marines sucked at engaging targets further than 300, sucked at engaging moving targets, things like that. Now we're catering to get that training into Marines. So we can't focus on basics, but we can't forget about them either. We can't forget about the Marines that do want to learn right out the gate. So that's why we're bringing it to Moodle. Everything will be delivered virtually, just like you would on a college program. So all our POIs will be live recorded by us shooting team members, exactly like we would teach it in person. It's going to be online in Moodle, though. There's going to be knowledge checks, quizzes, tests, all the reference material, all of those POIs is going to be on Moodle. So that's the required part. But in addition, we're going to turn it into online, kind of like an online marksmanship training forum as well. So there's going to be knowledge on there. So how do I build stages, the Marine Corps Marksmanship rule book, the links to practice score, so you can find local matches, anything that you would be paying $600 for to some civilian who's created a marksmanship program of their own out in the civilian world. We're delivering that in a Marine Corps format for free. So any Marine can effectively get what they would get paying for an individual course from insert name of high professional shooter. And now they can do that anywhere in the world on their phone, laptop, iPad, tablet, what have you. Come to the MCMCs, they're going to have the opportunity to put all that into training before the actual competition starts. So if they don't have that training from the previous MCMCs or on their own, they'll get about 2 to 3 days in front with the MTCs or the MTUs at the MCMC locations to live fire practice all the basic drills before that MCMC starts the next week, and they'll go right into intermediate drills. So again, focusing on having to make conscious non-shooting decisions while effectively manipulating their gun with their subconscious mind.
Yeah, makes sense. I imagine that you guys did draw some inspiration from the wide array of distance education, I guess, availability over the
Yep.
internet. I mean, we have, a lot of us got started through Ben Steger books. There's a lot of podcasts on competitive shooting. There's YouTube videos, like Steger will upload his entire 3-hour class along with other instructors. Where did you draw inspiration from when putting together your version of it on Moodle?
Yeah, so trying to encompass all this together, the original inspiration came from the IOLC East cadre, who had that online format, but that was infantry specific. But like you said, Ben Stoger's practical shooting training book, I believe is the title. I might be wrong, but his white book with the 4 levels of training. Max Michelle's Patreon account, where you can go on there and get all his training videos, practical shooting training group with Mason Lane, Joel Park, Ben Stoger again, all their books, all those guys, YouTube, like you said. I mean, who trains the Marine Corps shooting team when we're supposed to be the highest level of shooters in the Marine Corps? Well, we have to train ourselves. So it's ultimately going out and spending countless hours finding material, like going to paying out of pocket, or whether it's us or the Marine Corps paying for it, to find instructors, get training from them, talking to other federal entities, getting training with them. So we're taking everything we know and we're putting it into the IT sector or on Moodle. So when we leave the team, we're not taking that knowledge with us. So everything we're learning, we're implementing into Moodle. It'll all be tracked. And now everybody that comes after us won't have to start at the bottom like we did. So we're doing our best to try to transfer all that knowledge as best we can. So the generation after us can come in and 100% of the team is competing at the world level.
Very cool. It sounds like the relationship you intend, sometimes Moodle is a one-stop location, right? You go there, you finish whatever course, and part of my advanced commo course was on Moodle, and I honestly haven't really gone back on there again. But it sounds like this version is meant to grow and progress and evolve, not only with the mix, but with the knowledge that you, the members of the team, are going to put into it. So, is it fair to say that you envision the Marines in the fleet basically having like a continuing relationship with this information that you're about to be putting out there?
100%. So I envision it being almost like a living document. So again, drawing inspiration from ILC East, once you graduate that course, you're put into a separate course called the landing party, and it's every infantry reference or pub or order in there about infantry. So whether that's the fire team level, squad, platoon, company, anything that deals with being an infantry unit leader is in that landing party. I can reference that at any point. I log into Moodle, reference that. I can get any pub, whatever. I want the same thing for Marines and marksmanship, because there's nothing out there right now. Like if I want to look for something, I have to go to Google. I have to put whatever keywords and then search through all the entries. But if the Marines can go into Moodle, go into a module, and it's a living document, as we learn more knowledge, we create more modules, add on to it. They can always go back. If they forgot one little keynote, or they're trying to give a hip pocket class to their Marines in the fleet, they go in there, reference that. Our exact POIs are going to be there. So they can go in there, download the POI. That POI will be constantly updated year by year. So it's always the freshest knowledge. Print that out. Now they were given a hip pocket class to their Marines, whether on that gas gun or long range rifle or action rifle. So the Marines in the fleet are getting firsthand, up-to-date knowledge all the time without having to ask questions or wait for the next MCMC to come around. And additionally, another module on there is going to be a live forum that will shooting team will moderate. So anybody can ask a marksmanship question at any time. The community can answer the questions, and then the shooting team will also come in there, answer questions, and make sure that no false knowledge is being given. But really trying to create a entire Marine Corps marksmanship community where everybody's trying to better each other.
Super cool, man. That's all I
So,
have, Matt.
so we've been talking about all these changes, and it's all positive changes. Like I when I was in, I didn't even know what Moodle was, and I mean that was just a couple of years ago. But it seems
Yeah.
like over the past couple of years, Moodle's changed a lot of things. But with these changes that are being made, is there any changes to locations, frequency of the Marine Corps marksmanship competitions that the shooting team has planned for the upcoming FY?
So great question. So our long-term goal is to be able to have as many Marines into these marksmanship competitions as possible. So another reason of shortening them up is we can have more if need be. So it's a 1-week format now, 5 days. So we're looking at 2 training days, 3 days of competition, and that's with awards thrown in there. Looking at about 180 Marines still. But with this 1-week format, we can now double that back to back for locations like Camp Lejeune or Pacific, anything like that. So we can get twice the amount of Marines in there in this first year. The long-term goal is to have more locations, but then it comes down into issues with Marine Corps orders and whatnot, and about 3591 or the Marksmanship Program order, where if we start holding more at locations, it comes down into medals and trophies for the team matches. Because right now we are only allowed to have so many MCMCs. So that's the 5 locations, and really NCR still hasn't fully been approved because the latest order isn't there, but we hold it anyways. But the ultimate goal is double the input of Marines that are coming into that competition, and which is going to double the output of better qualified Marines in marksmanship, which like essentially more locations, more Marines. But for this first year, that might not happen. For FY25, we're still looking at the traditional 5 locations, which is NCR, Far East, which Okinawa, Pacific, Hawaii, West, Camp Pendleton, and East, which is Lejeune. Fine tune all the changes we've made, and then look at growth to other locations in the following years.
So you've kind of already hinted at it, and I'll be the first one to say, and you've already said it, but institutional change is difficult. Our organization is heavily bureaucratic, and often there's little incentive to affect long-term change because you likely won't be around to reap the benefits of it. Um, what would you say to others that may be stepping in to a less than ideal situation about how to influence positive forward progress?
Yeah, I think for myself, it's all about, it comes down to how much you love what you do and how passionate you are about it. So I came to the shooting team being very passionate about action shooting, wanting to actually better myself and better those around me. One thing Marines don't do enough is train a lot and effectively with firearms. Like we do our qualifications, we do ARQ, which is a qualification. You get your little grass week, however long that is now. CBP is a qualification. You have your tables, and that's all meant to qualify you to deploy. We're not looking at actually bettering people in the long run, besides the few drills that your units might do. So you got to be passionate about something, set long-term goals, and not really worry about you not being there to reap the benefits of it, but really set up your successors for success and just be proud of after the fact when your program 2 to 3 years from now is fully implemented, and you can take pride in knowing that you had a hand in that. It's not really something to pout about because you didn't finish the project, but you started it, and there's some pride in that. That's the way I see it. It's we owe it to all the Marines who come after us and before us to do the best we can, in my opinion. So that's the way I
No,
look at it.
yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I mean, we're only there for 3 years. You can only do so much, so you got to throw in as much as you can before that time is over, and just hope that it continues that same growth.
100%. Yeah, if the changes we implement today can save one Marine's life in the future, then it's all been worth it.
So when we started talking about this at the beginning of the year, we mentioned that you can only be on the phone or talk to a finite amount of people in a day. Being an effective writer, however, gives your argument its own life and doesn't require you to change people's minds through face-to-face conversation. As a recently promoted gunnery sergeant, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you
For
very
those
much.
that don't know, Stephen recently got promoted this past week to gunnery sergeant. How are you seeing effective writing skills as an important factor in convincing commanders to accept your suggestions?
Yeah, so one thing I've learned since really being a staff sergeant initially, and then even today being a newly promoted gunny and just dealing with the staff world, is that it's very political. At a certain point, it stops being about tactics and it starts being about making people happy and answering questions and accomplishing the mission by however that commander sees it. And you can only, like you said, you can only talk to so many people. And really what I've found is that if they're not on board with you right away, they're really going to block you out anyways if you're verbally talking to them. So I've worked with Frank on really just trying to better my writing skills, writing point papers and whatnot, and trying to get my point across in a way that's been researched and refined. And I'm not just spitting out what I'm trying to say, but I'm sitting down, I'm writing papers, and digging into what needs to be said in a clear, concise way while making valid arguments. Because one thing, if I come up to any senior leader above me and I'm not making a valid argument, they're immediately going to close me off. They get, like, we all have hundreds of other shit and things to do. So I make a paper. I wrote 2 papers on this topic before when we were just explaining or looking for ways to change. I wrote 2 papers on it. So the issue with the past MCMC formats and what was wrong with it, the deficiencies, what they did well at, but why we needed a change. And then I wrote a second point paper on essentially this new format and what it could deliver back to the Marine Corps. Had monetary values in there, how, like, numbers of Marines we could reach. So I found being able to give that out it cut a lot of questions off up front. People read that whole thing if they were doing their due diligence, and then they actually had legitimate questions for me, and they weren't just questioning everything off the bat.
No, I mean, that's pretty awesome. Like the amount of changes that you guys have been able to implement. Like you're going to be able to touch so many more Marines nowadays, just with that. And I just see nothing but positivity here. So, like, kudos to you and everybody on the team for making this stuff happen. I'm 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 excited to see the changes. Like seriously, man.
Me too. I got like less than a year left on the team. And I can tell everybody that's going to listen to this that since March, the Marine Corps shooting team has been putting in about individually per person. There was a 2-month stretch where dudes were working 80 hours a week just to deliver projects such as Marine Corps championships, completing tasks, trying to get Moodle online because there's a lot of videoing to do, a lot of lessons learned because it is a first of its kind. And it was myself, Captain Bod, Alex Go King, a bunch of other lead staff NCOs, like getting to work at 7 o'clock. And I wasn't leaving the office until 9, 10 p.m. Like there was a stretch where it's like every day for 2 weeks, I was at the office for 16 hours. And it was being really fulfilling. So because you can slowly start to see those changes get implemented, and we're almost to the point where we can slow down a little bit, but I want to shout those guys out because they're putting in a lot of work. They're sacrificing time at home. And when you're away from home, spouses can get angry, significant others, whether it's just a girlfriend, like you're working 16 hours a day, that's going to upset somebody besides your boss, right? That he's the only one that's happy, and the guys next to you who are also suffering with you.
Well, I just see it as showing the level of dedication that you guys have to what you're doing. Like
100%.
you're never gonna find that type of like personally, in my 20-year career, I don't think I saw that level of dedication anywhere else except the shooting team.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Usually it's like, what's the minimum I need to get done today? I'll push it off to tomorrow. I'm trying to get out of here. Like if I'm at work past 4:30, it's a bad day. And I mean, that was me in the fleet as well. Like you're sitting around all day or you're training and you're like, can't wait for 16:30 to get here, get home, just forget about all this. And now dudes are willingly working 12, 14, 16-hour days just to deliver projects. They're not doing the bare minimum. They're going really above and beyond what's required in order to affect lethality long term in the Marine Corps, which causes a lot of stress. They need like solid support. So another person I'll call out is Danny. So good friend of mine. She's been there talking to me for the last 2 weeks. Who's just been amazing and a great person to talk to. So I'll give her that call out.
Heck yeah. So before we wrap this up, do you have anything else you want to add?
Be on the lookout for the Marine Corps More admin for the Marine Corps Marksmanship competition. So this is going to be the first of its kind. There's going to be a lot of new challenges. The competition's only getting harder. So the days of walking into a MCMC and coming out with an easy bronze, silver, or gold medal is gone. Everybody now at this point, if they're interested in action shooting, has been exposed to it. So you really got to bring your A game. Like hop on the Moodle. We'll be pushing that all over socials. The Weapons Training Battalion website will be posting that up. We'll be broadcasting it hard. And so get on the Moodle, do the classes, practice, get to the competition, because you really owe it to yourself and the Marines around you to be the best marksman you can. So that's really it. Save a life by bettering your marksmanship.
Frank, you got anything else?
No, I think no, we really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. I think it's been very enlightening. Curious to see how this MCMC season goes. We'll probably have you on at some other time to talk about it in progress or just at the end. But yeah, I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah, thanks guys for letting me come on and talk about it, and I look forward to coming back on and talking about how the season went. It's gonna be exciting.
Yep. So to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to participate in the Inter-Service Rifle Championships, reach out to the team. It's coming up here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, June 20th or 21st, I believe it starts. If it's
Okay.
not, if I don't have my notebook in front of me, I don't remember it. So you gotta forgive me on that.
Yeah, so it's coming up this month. Like, get out here, participate. If you have anybody from the other branches who want to participate, reach out. It's on Practice Score. If you want to do Generation GWatt, reach out to us. We'll put you in contact with those guys. And if you have any questions for Frank or I or for Steven, just reach out to us and we'll put you in contact with the right person. Other than that, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you have a good one and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later.